Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I have all of my meditation, well not all of them, but I have like the regular ones that I bring over here on a daily basis. So I wanted to get into these books right away. Tonight is my home group meeting. You know, I love my Tuesdays with all of my recovery people. So actually, let's read from, what am I feeling today? Let's read from the book of positive quotations first, unless I go to it and it's just like a meditation that I'm not really feeling. Let's see what it says. Oh, this is a good one. A work in progress, October 26th. We are all of us guinea pigs in the laboratory of God. Humanity is just a work in progress. Tennessee Williams. If there's a plan to things, why do we seem to be such a mess? Wars, disease, famine, environmental damage, poverty, the list goes on and on. Surely we can do better. If we think of ourselves and all of humanity as a work in progress, we might be more forgiving of others and more hopeful of what will come in the future. The idea that human beings can improve individually and globally cheers me. I really like this meditation. You know, I mean, this is something that we talk about in recovery all the time, is about being a work in progress. That's the exact quote that we talk about, that I'm a work in progress, we're all a work in progress, right? And I love that idea because I will forever be a work in progress. There will never be a time where I reach just absolute perfection, and I don't even believe in perfection. I will forever be growing while I'm on this planet and while I'm alive, and hopefully. One of the saddest things to me, and honestly, one of the biggest turnoffs to me, is people that are unteachable. People that just think they know everything, you can't teach them anything. And I'm talking everything from how to do something that maybe they know how to do something better than you do, to just a way of thinking, to an experience, to whatever. It's just like people, to me, that are unwilling to have conversations about things and see, like, well, this is my point of view, what's your point of view, you know? Like, when I was younger, I loved staying up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with my friends and having these deep intellectual conversations, you know, where we would talk about all kinds of, like, world things, and, you know, it seemed simpler then. It seemed like we weren't, I don't know, like, you know, and yes, many of those times we were engaging in substances, but, you know, many times we weren't. And it was like we were able to have these conversations where people, I don't know, it wasn't that they were so protective of their opinions and, you know, without seeing the outside experiences of other people that we can learn from, which I think is one of the greatest books on earth, are the experiences of other people, you know, that we can learn from what other people have gone through and what they've experienced. Because, listen, I'm only seeing the world through my eyes. I'm only seeing the world through my experience. How could I possibly know what the world is like through your experience or through your eyes or what you've gone through? And what an amazing thing to be able to share that with one another, right? But when we get to a point where it's like, no, my opinion, my experience is right, my experience, my opinion is better than yours, my perspective is right, then we have become unteachable at that point, right? And it's like, I see this on social media all the time, okay? From politics to entertainment stuff to whatever, to critiquing reality shows. It's like whatever it is, you know? People always are like, well, my opinion's right, and if you don't like that, then unfriend me, and you don't see things the way that I do. We're never gonna see things always the same, right? But what an amazing, magical tool, a magically amazing tool to be able to learn from one another, to remain teachable and continue to grow, is one of the greatest gifts that we have ever been given while alive, you know? And so many people refuse to do that. So many people choose to just live in this little bubble, you know? And even if you don't experience a lot of diverse experiences from other people in your life, maybe you live in a small town, maybe you haven't traveled far, whatever, you know? It's like the term that I think Ann Tyler, the author, she coined, which is the armchair traveler. You know, you can read about the experience of others. You can watch movies about the experience of others. You can read poetry and listen to music from the experience and the point of view and the perspective of others, right? So to just stay in a world, to stay ignorant in a world full of so much richness and you know, and just, there's so much total diversity in the world, right? And just to only have one life experience. It's like going to the same restaurant and always having, like, my husband does this on for brunch every Sunday, and I've long past said anything to him, but you know, it's like going to brunch every Sunday and having the same thing. This is an argument my husband and I have had. I'm like, don't you want to try something else? You know, but he's like, no, I know what I like. I know what I like, right? Well, but the thing about him is he's very teachable in other ways. So, but it would be like, you know, going to one restaurant for the rest of your life every single day and always getting mashed potatoes. How do you know you don't like macaroni and cheese? How do you know that you don't like, I don't know, crab rangoon? How do you know that you don't like peach cobbler? No, I'm just going to have mashed potatoes every single day, you know? So, anyway, I just think it's kind of a sad outlook on life. But I think this is a great meditation, you know, to always remember to just kind of remain in a state of being remaining teachable. You know, I used to say that back in the day, and then people kind of turned it into a joke or whatever. But, you know, like, even in the midst of me making mistakes, I was still remaining teachable. And so it really was never a joke to me, you know. And I've always believed in remaining teachable. You know, I think the saddest thing is when we remain unteachable. And, you know, I guess jokes on the person that continues to not grow in life, right? Because honestly, it's sad. They're the ones that are missing out the most, you know? They're the ones that aren't going to ever grow or see things differently, you know? And it's kind of like this, too. It's like, well, it's interesting. I used to play this kind of like question game with my friends, right? And so I made up this character. I'll ask you guys the question and you answer it in the comment section below. But don't read anybody else's comment before you answer. Just answer it from your perspective, all right? Because I think there's two ways to look at this, honestly. So there's this girl, and her name's Darlene, right? Okay, so Darlene's from a small town in Indiana. And Darlene has a husband that she's happy with and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And she works at the gas station, and she works on second shift, and she comes home. And, you know, her husband's sitting there with some friends, and he's watching a football game. And he's like, hey, honey, how are you? And she comes inside and, you know, or she makes a beer, or she makes a, you know, a ham sandwich and potato salad and cracks open a beer and goes and sits on the back porch and looks at this, you know, the night, and calls her best friend on the phone, and they talk and catch up and laugh, and she's got a good life, you know, she's happy, right? But then one day, Darlene's aunt calls her, okay? And Darlene has this aunt that she doesn't know real well, right? She knew her when she was younger, but this aunt's always been very artsy and bohemian and different, and she lives in Paris. And so she calls Darlene and says, I'd love for you to come over and stay with me for like 6 months. You know, I'm gonna travel all over Europe. I'm gonna go to Italy. I'm gonna do this, you know, whatever. And you can stay, you know, in my apartment for like a month in Paris, and I can, you know, show you France and all this kind of stuff. So her aunt flies her over, and Darlene's never left the small town that she's from. So her aunt flies her over to Paris, and she spends a month in Paris, and she sees all the museums, and she walks the streets, and she sees all the fashion, and tries all the different food, and they go to Italy, and they go to the south of France, and she swims in the ocean for the first time and feels sand on her feet and all this kind of stuff. Will Darlene ever be the same again when she goes home, or will she always be longing for something different? Or will she get home and say to herself, this is what I wanted all along? And I really think it has to do with who we are inside. But I also think it's a good question about when we are exposed to more of the world, and you don't have to travel to Paris, and you don't have to have an aunt that's going to take you all over Europe, and you don't have to swim with your toes in the sand in the south of France to have world experiences. You can turn on the TV, you can read a book, you can educate yourself through articles and, you know, literature, poetry, and songs, and see other people's experiences. How you can see it on YouTube, you know, and see a different world out there. But as we do, I think the way that we treat people changes a little bit. I think, you know, whenever I go somewhere else and I see how people are there and how they treat each other, whether it's just going to visit family somewhere else, you know, I think we learn things, not so much maybe about the rest of the world, as we do about ourselves. We learn about ourselves. We learn about the things that we love. We learn about the things that we enjoy. Maybe we realize, I'm not a Paris kind of person, you know? The battery died when I was like really getting into all that. But you know, I can remember going to New York for the very first time, right? And walked around, and And this was like, I was an adult, you know, I was in my 30s. And I can remember I got a cup of coffee from Starbucks, a cinnamon dolce latte, and I walked around and I saw Tiffany's, where Breakfast at Tiffany's was, and the museum, the library, and you know, Central Park, and all of it. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was amazing, right? But I realized one thing very, very quickly when I was in New York City. And interestingly enough, I went to Los Angeles. I'd been to Los Angeles before, but I went to Los Angeles a couple years ago and spent a couple days there. And I realized the same thing about Los Angeles. I am not, and I love Miami, but Miami even has like the South Beach area, even has like it has like a small town vibe to me. It's like a beach city. I'm not a big city person. I'm just not. I'm small town, you know? And, you know, you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy. And that's just, I realized that about myself, you know? And I like things slower. I like things cheaper, you know? But I do. I like to drive around in the country, and I like to hear the crickets late at night, and I like to, you know, feel the breeze on me with the windows down, and I want to be able to live somewhere where I can do that, not just, you know, I like to open the windows, the back to the yard, and hear somebody mowing the lawn, and hearing, you know, kids playing soccer in the yard, and my neighbors talking, you know, two houses down. I don't want to just hear, you know, street noise all the time. Now, I love it to go visit a big city for 2 days. I love it, you know, love Las Vegas, but to live there all the time, that's not me. And I realize that about myself. But that doesn't mean that I can't learn about myself from the rest of the world. That doesn't mean that I can't travel. That doesn't mean that I can't learn about what is important to me in this world and what's important to other people, and have that impact and affect my worldview. And I think that's important. So, and that's where education never stops, you know, as long as we remain teachable. So that was a great meditation today. I really, really liked that. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.